On this episode of Lapeef, Let's Talk.
I don't think there's ever even balance, and I'm just going for observation because I don't consider myself an arrogant individual. I definitely consider myself confident in my ability to lead and confident in what I do on a day-to-day basis. But from observation, I think both can exist. And then I'm sorry, JR, what was the second part to that question?
Is arrogance a mask for insecurities?
I don't know that it is all the time. I don't know that it is. Some people, like Anton was saying, some people mistake arrogance for being an a-hole. And if that person is legitimately an a-hole, it is what it is. If you're in the military and you're dealing with a drill sergeant, you look at that person, you have to have a certain mindset to be a drill sergeant, man, because it's just results. I don't have time for excuses. I don't have time for shenanigans. I don't have time for the BS. We just focused on excuses. And so I don't know. I don't know that arrogance is necessarily a mask for insecurities, but I think to the observable eye, we do see where that can be.
Well, I mean, there's a clear-cut definition of arrogance. It's a clear-cut definition of confidence. And the difference between the two is the overbearing, the excessiveness of it.
No, if I'm looking at arrogance means an exaggerated sense of one's own importance or abilities. Now, the point that I'm making is that the way that you defined it versus the way that you applied it is two different things.
Okay.
In most situations, there is nothing exaggerated about the ability or the importance of whatever said person is doing or saying. They very much are the people that have put in the work. They are the people that hold the keys to a lot of people's success. They are the person that needs to exert dominance. And a lot of times, especially women, not you specifically, Courtney, but a lot of times women don't understand the role of men and the importance that they play in having to make certain decisions. And so often at times they conflate arrogance with confidence. And I think that arrogance is often exaggerated and overused in most situations because people don't truly understand how to apply it and what context to use it as.
Well, I understand what you're saying. People are calling people arrogant when it's not arrogance. It's me being a man and me being dominant. And because I am that, you're calling me arrogant. So that's where I'm getting that you're coming from. I'm just basing it on the literal definition of, what would be the difference. And it is the overbearing, the overimportance of someone over someone that's confident, but is willing to learn and change. So,
I want to get
King's question, though.
I'll
let someone go.
King, confident or arrogant?
Yeah,
is that difference?
I agree with most of what's being said. Arrogance is annoying, is loud. Confidence is low key, certain, doing things with grace, but having the same impact, right? So if I'm a teacher and a child makes a mistake, an arrogant person, are you stupid? Don't you know better? But a confident teacher would say, maybe we can revisit this when you grasp the context of the lesson today, right? It's your approach, it's your response. But this might be one of the few times I agree with Anton because, and he completely didn't answer the question, but he made a good point outside of that, right? Which was, it's about the receiver. In communication, you have the speaker and the audience. So no matter what the speaker says, if the audience doesn't have if the audience has insecurities about themselves, they're going to always think that confident speaker is arrogant. They're always going to think if the audience believes that speaker is someone that thinks they're too good, they're going to always feel that they are arrogant. So it's about who is receiving your guidance, who is receiving your words. It's about the receiver's perception on the speaker. But I think, once again, we as men, especially in relationships and leadership roles, we need to be a little bit more tactful and graceful. I'm working on that myself, to be honest with you. Sometimes I burst out, but we need to be a little bit more tactful and graceful. But I think the frustration comes in when when you're tactful and graceful and you continue to do that, they might still not perceive it as that. So you're still arrogant. No matter how many times you try to improve on your messaging, they still might consider you arrogant because they already have that embedded perception of you. Like Anton might be the best guy in the world, but because we have an embedded perception of him being egotistical, that's what it is. That's what it is.
And then, I mean, I think that he's completely right, right? But then, like, to add even more context, right? If I'm dealing with, I'm gonna deal with, if I had a son, I would deal with him much different than I would deal with my daughter, right? Sometimes, you know, lessons need to be taught. Sometimes you need to emphasize things a little bit differently. Sometimes you need to be a little bit more aggressive. So I'm not going to deal with him in the same way with kid gloves in certain situations because of what it is that I'm trying to teach him or make him understand in certain situations. So because a woman in that sense, right, because of how I might deal with some of the guys that I mentor, for example, and then my wife might come back and say, Anton, you're a little too hard on them. When in reality, I understand that that's what they needed in order to get over that hump and understand that the world don't owe you nothing. And this is a small example of what you're going to face when you get out of there, right? Somebody may conflate that to be arrogance or the way that I handle them according to how they've defined it. Depending on how they feel that day, they'll conflate that with being arrogant. When in reality, I'm instilling confidence in this young man to be able to go through and be able to deliver on a regular basis in a society that's going to be unforgiving to him versus they'll be a lot more soft when it comes to a woman. It's two different types of approaches that you have to take, but because people lack the understanding and they're not where you are as far as understanding what the world is going to deliver to that person because they've never experienced what it's like being a man, they'll think that that's something that it's not. And I think that a lot of times people that throw the labels probably need to be the ones that do the most self-reflecting versus the person that's actually doing the work, being the one that's actually delivering on what these things are, and it's the one that's being labeled.
I want to say I appreciate you guys for giving your opinions on this topic, and you guys have been kind of answering a little bit of my 2 follow-up questions, so I want to go ahead and put them out there right now, and just feel free to answer it as you guys see fit. But the follow-up questions are: is there room for both, and is arrogance a mask for insecurities? Is there room for both, and is arrogance a mask for insecurities? You guys can answer as you feel.
I'm gonna say yeah, and it's crazy because the more I'm thinking about this question, you know, for me, I think about Dame Dash, I think about Kanye, I think about Reginald Lewis, one of the greatest businessmen of all time, right? And you had to have a little bit of both. You had to be arrogant enough to go in there and kick in the door and demand leverage a negotiation that would allow you to build $1 billion business, right? So you have to have that arrogance, but that arrogance comes from your confidence. And again, your confidence is rooted in the fact that you've qualified yourself. So you're confident in your abilities to accomplish the task. I think there is room for both. I don't think there's ever an even balance. I don't think there's ever an even balance. And I'm just going for observation because I don't consider myself an arrogant individual. I definitely consider myself confident in my ability to lead and confident in what I do on a day-to-day basis. But from observation, I think both can exist. And then I'm sorry, JR, what was the second part to that question?
Is arrogance a mask for insecurities?
I don't know that it is all the time. I don't know that it is. Some people, like Anton was saying, you know, some people mistake arrogance for being an a-hole. And if that person is legitimately an a-hole, it is what it is. If you're in the military and you're dealing with a drill sergeant, you look at that person, you have to have a certain mindset to be a drill sergeant, man, because it's just results. I don't have time for excuses. I don't have time for shenanigans. I don't have time for the BS. We just focused on excuses. And so I don't know. I don't know that arrogance is necessarily a mask for insecurities, but I think to the observable eye, we do see where that can be.